Part 61. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 603. They are preparing to retake the capital of Tang Dynasty. Although Li Jianquan's army at this time had shrunk by half compared to before he went to Yangzhou, the 1.5 million army was still a huge number. All the soldiers stood outside the city and stretched for dozens of miles at a glance. Not to the end. If Guojia had not captured Chang'an city the day before, and faced this 1.5 million army in the wild, then even with the two peerless generals Ma Chao and Tai Shi Ci, as well as the Dragon City Cavalry and Qin Ruishi, a division of 6,000 kings, Guojia you still may not win. After all, they have too many people, and Guojia is not as powerful as Lu Feng. He needs the protection of the Dragon Kingdom soldiers. This makes the Dragon Kingdom army, which is already at a numerical disadvantage, even more disadvantaged once the war begins. After all, Lu Feng was able to defeat Li Jianquan's 2 million army with an army of 100,000, because each of his 100,000 troops could defeat 100, and Li Yuanba, Zhao Yun, Zhang Liao and others were unbeatable. However, the 100,000 troops under Guojia were all prisoners surrendered from other forces. Their combat effectiveness was not as good as that of the soldiers of the Tang dynasty. Only the 6,000 Longcheng Iron Cavalry and Qin Ruishi could fight with them. Fortunately, Guojia has now captured Chang'an city. He can rely on the city wall to fight Li Jianquan's army. However, Sun Tzu, the sage of war, once said that in the art of war, the top priority is to attack the heart, and the bottom priority is to attack the city. As the military advisor of the Dragon Kingdom, Guojia had made great achievements in concurrency. Naturally, he could not just let the Dragon Kingdom army defend the city and wait for Li Jianquan's million-strong army to arrive. Therefore, Guojia had already thought of a plan. When he saw Jian coming with his troops, he immediately took Li Yuan to the top of the city wall and confronted Li Jiancheng. This was the first time Li Yuan saw Li Jiancheng again after being placed under house arrest by Li Jiancheng in the cold palace of the emperor's office. It was also the first time he saw Li Jiancheng after learning that Li Shimin had been killed. Looking at the embarrassed Li Jiancheng standing among millions of troops outside the city, Li Yuan's heart was full of contradictions. After all, as his eldest son, Li Jiancheng killed his younger brother Li Shimin with his own hands, and fearing that the matter would be exposed, he summoned the imperial army to force him to the palace and usurp power. Moreover, all of this happened on the night after he had made him the prince, which made Li Yuan even more difficult to accept. After all, before this, although Li Jiancheng had some troubles, he had always been very obedient and polite. It is precisely because of this that Li Yuan was so relieved to pass the crown prince's position to him instead of his favorite son Li Shimin. Of course, this was also to protect Li Shimin, because he knew that Li Jiancheng was bound to win the position of prince, and although Li Shimin also intended to fight for it, he was more tolerant towards his eldest brother. Therefore, Li Yuan made Li Jiancheng the prince in order to prevent Li Shimin from taking revenge from Li Jiancheng once he became the prince, which would cause them to kill each other. It's a pity that he looked away in the end. He didn't expect that the gentleness, courtesy and thrift shown by Li Jiancheng in front of him were all disguised by him in order to compete for the position of prince. Once he became the prince, he would show his fangs. To read the underlined version of the novel, please download the Philu Novel app. A. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 604. Therefore, since learning that Li Shimin was assassinated, Li Yuanba and Li Ziyuning were almost killed at the hands of Li Jiancheng, and were even forced to defect to the Dragon Kingdom, Li Yuan's heart was filled with anger, grief, and regret. Together. Before meeting Li Jiancheng, he thought that he was full of anger. If he could see him again, he would scold him without hesitation, and even put him in jail and execute him. But at this time, When Li Jiancheng finally appeared in front of him, his rock-solid heart was shaken. After all, he was also his own son. How could he kill one son for another? What about revenge? Tiger poison doesn't eat its seeds, let alone Li Yuan? After Li Yuan stared at Li Jiancheng on the city wall for a long time, Li Yuan finally said slowly, Jianjianken, you have no chance. Surrender. It's still too late to turn back now. After Li Jiancheng was silent for a moment, he licked his tongue deep inside. With chapped lips, he still said firmly, no, father, I still have millions of troops. As long as I can recapture Chang'an, I can make a comeback. Are you willing to see the Li family dynasty that we worked so hard to defeat perish like this? After Li Jiancheng finished speaking, Li Yuan looked at him without speaking for a long time. At this time, Guojia interrupted Li Jiancheng, don't deceive yourself here. How much of this huge territory is the Li family dynasty in your mouth? Did you defeat them? If I'm not wrong, it should be Li Shimin, Li Ziyuning, and Li Yuanba who really opened up the territory for the Tang dynasty, right? And you just stole their fruits. Now, the three of them, where are you? Li Shimin was killed by you, and Li Yuanba and Li Ziyuning were forced to the Dragon Kingdom by your constant pursuit. Li Jiancheng, take a good look at your father. How old is he now? He is just over middle age, but his head is full of white hair, like an old man in his 70s or 80s. Have you ever thought about why? ETA Euro trademark S all because of you. Because of you, Li Shimin, and used force to force your father to abdicate. You have you broke his trust in you and made him extremely sad. Now his heart is dead. You are right. You do have millions of troops now, but so what? Having more troops does not mean you can make a comeback. Think about it. Wasn't it true that your previous 3 million army was reduced to just over 1 million by His Majesty? From the moment you killed Li Shimin, you were already doomed to end in betrayal and separation. Among the 1 million soldiers, how many people are willing to die generously for you, the emperor who usurped the throne? As soon as Guojia said this, the soldiers of the Tang dynasty outside Chang'an city suddenly caused a commotion, and everyone's eyes changed when they looked at Li Jiancheng. But Guojia did not stop. He continued, Li Jiancheng, you killed Li Shimin, Li Yuanba will definitely avenge you. With his force, if he wants to kill you, do you think you still have a way to survive? You don't forget, Li Yuanba not only listens to Li Shimin's words, he also respects your father's words very much. If there is anyone in this world who can stop Li Yuanba from seeking revenge on you, then this person is only your father. Surrender. Guo. After Jiao finished speaking, Li Jiancheng couldn't help but raise his head. Feeler reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 3 Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 605. Looking at Li Yuan standing on the city wall, looking at his white-haired father, he felt a little sad. For some reason, Li Jiancheng suddenly remembered all his experiences as a child. At that time, his father was still an official in the Sui dynasty, not the emperor. He often taught himself to put filial piety first and have deep brotherhood. When he was a child, he and his second brother Li Shimin always coexisted peacefully, encouraged each other, played together, and did not have to fight for an illusory throne. Thinking of this, Li Jiancheng suddenly felt as if a huge stone was pressing on his chest, making his chest feel tight and breathless. However, Guojia obviously did not intend to let Li Jiancheng go just like this. He pointed at Li Yuan beside him and said to the millions of soldiers of the Tang dynasty outside the city, fellow soldiers and heroes of the Tang dynasty, look, who is this? Stand here. The person on the city wall is the real emperor of the Tang dynasty, the real founder and ruler of the Tang Empire that you are loyal to, and what you are working for now is just a usurper. Do you think that for him, you are like this? Is it worth sacrificing your life for an unfaithful, unjust, kingless, and fatherless man? After Guojiao finished speaking, there was another commotion from the Tang soldiers under the city, and Li Yuan's face changed slightly. Only then did he understand Guojia's purpose for asking him to come forward. Standing up by himself was not really to persuade Li Jiancheng to surrender as Guojia said, because in fact, Guojia himself knew very well that Li Jiancheng had come to this point. It was really unrealistic for him to surrender. Therefore, Guojia's real purpose in asking Li Yuan to stand up was to undermine the morale of the Tang army because of the identity of Yuan, the founder of the Tang dynasty and Li Jianquan's father. After all, the reason why Li Jiancheng ascended the throne and proclaimed himself emperor overnight was because Li Yuan was ill and unable to handle government affairs, so the throne was passed on to him as the prince. Although many people did not believe it, such as Chang Wuji, firstly Li Jiancheng had the edict from Li Yuan passing the throne to him, and secondly they, the doubters, could not produce evidence, so they could only recognize Li Jianquan's throne by default. But at this time, Li Yuan appeared on the city wall of Chang'an. Although he was a little old, his body was still strong. Everyone could see this, which naturally overturned Li Jianquan's reason for saying that Li Yuan was ill. In addition, with Li Yuan's personal statement and Guojia checking for leaks and filling in the gaps at any time, the entire process of Li Jiancheng killing his brother and forcing his father was exposed, so naturally everyone would not believe it. Therefore, when the soldiers of the Tang dynasty discovered that the emperor they were loyal to was actually an emperor who did not care about the lives of his father and brothers and was full of lies, their morale would inevitably fall to the bottom. Li Yuan figured out Guojia's plan. Fang Xianling and Du Ruhui had naturally guessed Guojia's conspiracy. They hurriedly said to Li Jiancheng, "Your Majesty, we can't let him talk anymore. Let's attack." Guojia said this. The opening of his mouth was really powerful. In just a few words, Li Jianquan's army of 1.5 million people had already lost half of its combat effectiveness. If he continued to speak, I am afraid that these soldiers would not be able to command anymore. Because Fang Xianling and the two were too impatient, what they said was overheard by Guojia, who had been paying close attention to the situation below. To read the underlined version of the novel, please download the Filu Novel app. A. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 606. He did not expect that these two top advisors who originally worked for Li Shimin would be so loyal to Li Jiancheng at this time. So Guojia glanced at the two of them, and then said, "Li Jiancheng, you must not be impulsive. You must know that your father is in my hands, and every decision you make is related to his life and death. Are you serious, a person who is unscrupulous for the sake of the throne and power? If you are really such a person, then even if you take back Chang'an City, the civil servants and generals and soldiers who are following you now will still be how many people can be loyal to you with peace of mind." After hearing Guojia's words, Li Jianquan's face changed drastically, while Fang Xianling and Du Ruhui's faces were also very ugly. Guojia's words were heartbreaking, but as he said, if Li Jiancheng became the emperor and could ignore his father's life, then what else would the lives of other people count in his eyes? After hearing Guojia's words, many officers and soldiers couldn't help but think that if one day they were captured or besieged by the enemy, then Li Jiancheng would not care about their lives and directly launch an attack, right? Even though Fang Xianling and Du Ruhui knew that Guojia's words were really intended to sow discord between Li Jiancheng and the Tang soldiers, they still had a strange feeling in their hearts. Even the two of them were like this, and the ordinary soldiers were already a little disappointed with Li Jiancheng. At this time, Li Jing stood quietly at the edge behind Li Jiancheng, squinting his eyes and looking at Guojia on the city wall. Obviously, he saw that Guojia was a tough opponent. At least, even if it were him, with 100,000 soldiers with few soldiers, facing Li Jianquan's attack of more than 1 million troops, he might not be able to think of such a way to disintegrate Li Jianquan's military morale. Just when Li Jianquan was in a dilemma, not knowing whether to attack or not, bursts of killing cries suddenly came from all directions. Li Jianquan's expression changed greatly, and he turned around hurriedly, only to find that Ma Chao, leading the Dragon City cavalry, and 100,000 Sui troops had appeared behind him at some point, blocking his retreat. At the same time, to the south of the army was Taishasai, 3,000 Qin warriors and 50,000 Sui troops, while to the north, Lu Feng came slowly with his main force. Standing at the front of Lu Feng's army were two young generals holding double hammers. Lu Feng now appeared outside Chang'an City, bringing only 100,000 direct troops with him. Because these 100,000 soldiers and horses were all cavalry, they were fast and highly maneuverable. Therefore, even if they came from the north via a detour, they would be more powerful than Feng Laihe. Shuiwan's soldiers and horses were faster. In addition, although there are infantry such as the dragon warriors led by Dian Wei among this 100,000 strong army, the speed of the dragon warriors is no slower than that of ordinary cavalry. Seeing that his east, north, and south sides were all blocked by the Dragon Kingdom soldiers and horses, and that there was only the Chang'an city wall to the west, Li Jianquan had a look of determination in his eyes, and the time had come to fight to the death. Li Jianquan led an army of 1.5 million to Chang'an city, but Lu Feng arrived in time with the army of his direct lineage Dragon Kingdom and surrounded Chang'an city. Fila reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share. 3 Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 607. Therefore, he made up his mind to fight to the death. However, although Li Jianquan was determined to fight to the death with the Dragon Kingdom, this was only his will. However, the more than 1 million troops under his command had already been demoralized by Guojia's words and had no fighting spirit at all. Under such circumstances, even if Li Jianquan could command the 1.5 million troops to fight against the Dragon Kingdom army, how much combat power could they unleash? What's more, there are not just some ordinary soldiers in the Dragon Kingdom's army. No one in Li Jianquan's entire army can stop Li Yuanba and Pei Yuanking's 2 pairs of sledgehammers who are opening the way at the front. It can be said that Li Jianquan's current situation has completely verified Guojia's evaluation of him just now, that everyone has betrayed and separated from his relatives. Just when Li Jianquan looked around, not knowing what to do next, he only heard Li Yuanba shouting, "Li Jianquan, you killed the second brother. Today Yuanba will kill you to avenge the second brother." Li Yuanba's voice was like thunder. When he heard his roar, Li Jianquan hurriedly raised his head and looked towards the place where the voice came from. At a glance, he saw Li Yuanba coming towards him with his teeth and claws brandishing his hammers. The Wan Liyun under Li Yuanba's crotch is a top-notch war horse. Even Lu Feng, Mo Kailan, who was personally trained by the Longcheng horse trainer, is difficult to defeat. So after Li Yuanba finished shouting, it led Li Yuanba to Li Jianquan like a whirlwind. Of course, as the emperor of the Tang dynasty, Li Jianquan was not an unscrupulous emperor like Yang Guang. Naturally, he still had some die-hard loyalists and his dead soldiers or generals. When they saw Li Yuan charging, they rushed forward desperately to stop him. However, no matter how many of these unknown soldiers there was no threat from the Wuji warriors like Yuanba, so they were all knocked away one by Li Yuanba. Seeing Li Yuanba charging straight towards him, Li Jianquan refused to dodge. Although in the eyes of others, he seemed to be frightened and stood still, but he was the only one who knew that he could actually move, but he didn't want to move. When Guojia persuaded him, he had already felt some remorse for what he had done. After all, he, Li Jianquan, was not essentially a person who disowned his relatives and was only interested in profit. It was just that he was blinded by a man named Ren Zheng and mistakenly believed that Li Shimin wanted to kill him to monopolize the throne, so he believed the slander and not only killed Li Shimin, but also forced his father to abdicate. Later, when he wanted to find Ren Zheng to ask about the plan and how to deal with the next development, he returned to Ren Zheng's home and was burned to ashes by a group of people, and even he was buried in the sea of a fire. Since the mysterious death of Ren Zheng, Li Jianquan's situation has gone from bad to worse, and there is no one to discuss countermeasures, which ultimately led to the current fiasco. Of course, with the capabilities of Su Mogong, Fang Xianling, and Du Ruhuai, if Li Jiancheng wanted to discuss with them, he would definitely be able to get a better result. But it is a pity that they all worked for Li Shimin in the first place and were not Li Jianquan's confidants, so they did not gain Li Jianquan's trust. Of course, the main reason why Li Jiancheng didn't move was that he already regretted it. To read the underlined version of the novel, please download the Philu Novel app. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 608. When he saw Li Yuanba trying to kill his elder brother in order to avenge his second brother, he suddenly felt that his life was a failure. He personally killed a younger brother and even wanted to kill another younger brother and sister. Now Li Yuanba was supposed to be someone close to him, but he regarded himself as an enemy. This was enough to make Li Jiancheng feel like a failure. Maybe, if Li Yuanba kills him to avenge his second brother, he will feel happier. Can his hatred for himself be reduced? Li Jiancheng thought this, and Li Yuanba had already rushed to him. After all, Wan Liun, as the top war horse, was naturally fast and rushed over almost instantly. Seeing that Li Yuanba was about to hit Li Jiancheng to death with a hammer, Li Yuan on the city wall was so frightened that his liver and gallbladder burst. He hurriedly shouted to Li Yuanba, "Yuanba can't do it, stop it quickly." However, in the end, he still took a step behind and at the speed of Wan Liyun, coupled with the weight of the 400 kilograms of the drum urn and golden hammer, even Li Yuanba could not contain the power in an instant. Of course, it is more likely that Li Yuanba did not want to stop at all. In the end, what everyone saw was that after Li Yuan finished shouting, Li Yuanba directly hit Li Jiancheng with a hammer without any pause or hesitation, smashing him and his horse to the ground, turning him into minced meat. Built. Li Yuan saw his youngest son killed with his own eyes. He couldn't hold back the blow and collapsed directly to the ground. Even though the eldest son Li Jiancheng killed his favorite second son Li Shimin and forced himself to abdicate, he was still his son after all. No matter how big his fault was, how could he die in front of him like this? What's more, what Li Yuan couldn't accept was that the death of his eldest son was personally caused by his younger son. Coupled with the fact that the eldest son had killed the second son before, how could Li Yuan bear the pain of losing 3 children in a row? Everyone said that the family was unfortunate. At this time, Li Yuan finally realized what it meant that the family was unfortunate. He could not even think about it. He understood what sins he had done in his previous life, and God wanted to punish him like this. At this moment, Li Yuan seemed to have aged more than 10 years. There were even tears flowing out of the corners of his eyes, but they were not ordinary tears, but blood and tears. As for Li Ziyuning, who was beside Lu Feng, she looked at her eldest brother's unrecognizable corpse, and felt empty in her heart. That day she learned that her eldest brother had killed her second brother, and she was filled with resentment towards him and vowed to kill him. Killing him to avenge her second brother, for which she did not hesitate to bear the name of a traitor and left Chang'an to join the Dragon Kingdom. She originally thought that when she killed Li Jiancheng to avenge her second brother, she would feel relieved, but now seeing her younger brother avenging her second brother with her own eyes, she had no idea, nor was she as excited as she imagined. Perhaps, even if she was unwilling to admit that Li Jiancheng was still his eldest brother, she had never denied it in her heart. Lu Feng looked at Li Jiancheng's half-body lying on the ground and couldn't help but feel a little emotional. A few days ago, this man was the emperor of the Tang dynasty and had the most extensive territory in the world. Fei Lu reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, share, comma. 3 Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 609. But now, he has fallen under his own capital, and in an extremely miserable way. His entire chest and above have been smashed into a puddle by Li Yuanba's hammer. Minced meat, no identity at all. However, Li Yuanba's attack was indeed beyond everyone's expectations. No one could have imagined that Li Yuanba would do it just as he said without any communication at all. It's just pitiful that Li Jiancheng, who had been emperor for a month, died so tragically. He was killed by his younger brother before he even had time to say his last words. After looking at Li Jiancheng's body for a long time, the soldiers of the Tang dynasty finally came to their senses. Now that Li Jiancheng was dead, what should they do? As officials of the Tang dynasty, they should have been loyal to the Tang dynasty. However, now that the emperor of the Tang dynasty Li Jiancheng has died, and Li Yuan seems to have been captured by the Dragon Kingdom a long time ago, if they still want to serve the Tang dynasty, then after all there is no escaping death. Moreover, there are only one Li Yuanba and Li Yuanji left in the entire Li family, and Li Yuanba only has brute strength, but the intelligence is equivalent to that of a 15-year-old child, and he has also defected to the Dragon Kingdom. As for Li Yuanji, he was the most mediocre and least capable among the 4 sons of Li Yuan. He could not compare with his second brother Li Shimin in terms of marching and fighting, could not compare with his eldest brother Li Jiancheng in terms of political power, and was no match for Li Yuanba in terms of personal force. So, besides surrendering to the Dragon Kingdom, what other options do they have? So, Fang Xianling and Du Ruhui looked at each other, finally sighed, and led everyone to surrender to Lu Feng. As for the more than 1 million troops of the Tang dynasty, Guojia's words damaged their morale, lost their fighting spirit, and temporarily reduced their combat effectiveness. However, their strength was not lost. Without the leadership of Li Jiancheng, Yu Qigong, and others, they surrendered directly. After gathering the soldiers of the Tang dynasty, they walked down the city wall with Li Yuan and opened the city gate, preparing to welcome Lu Feng into the city. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared behind Lu, rushed towards Guojia and Li Yuan at an extremely fast speed, raised the long spear in his hand, and smashed it hard. Faced with this situation, Ma Supernatural, who had never forgotten his mission and rushed over to protect Guojia's safety after Guojia left the city, reacted immediately. Just when the man's long spear was about to hit Li Yuan, Ma Chao also took action at the same time, swung the tiger-headed golden gun in his hand, and suddenly struck a blow with the opponent. With a crisp bang sound, the man was shaken away by Ma Chao's blow and took 8 or 9 steps back before he came to a halt. Immediately afterwards, soldiers from the Dragon City cavalry rushed forward and controlled the man. Guoqia, who had just recovered from the blow, frowned and looked at the man and asked Shan Xiangxin, "What are you doing?" This person was Shan Xiangxin, who had a grudge against Li Yuan for killing his brother. At this time, Lu Feng also squinted his eyes and stared at him closely, while secretly cursing in his heart, "Shan Xiangxin, you idiot. I know that Li Yuan has a grudge against you for killing your brother, but since I promised you to help you take revenge, how can I break my promise? Even if you want to kill him, you can't kill him now." Not to mention that Li Yuangi was the former emperor of the Tang dynasty, and he must be given a certain amount of respect. To read the underlined version of the novel, please download the Philu Novel app. A. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 610. At this time, 1.5 million soldiers of the Tang dynasty, as well as generals of the Tang dynasty such as Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, and Li Jing were watching, waiting to submit. If Li Yuan was killed in front of them now, how could they agree? Even those who might have decided to surrender would be angered by Shan Xiangxin and rebel on the spot. Shan Xiangxin, as the former chief executive of 9 provinces in the Green Forest, naturally has some political acumen. Of course he knows what the consequences will be if he kills Li Yuan now, but he also has his worries in his heart. After all, both Li Yuanba and Li Ziyuning have surrendered to the Dragon Kingdom and have been favored by the Dragon Emperor. Li Yuanba was named the Hammer General by the Dragon Emperor, and Li Ziyuning is even more likely to become the Dragon Emperor's concubine. In this way, as Li Yuan was the father of both of them, how could Lu Feng kill him? Then when would his revenge be avenged? If you don't take action now, how can you have a chance later? But in fact, Shan Xiangxin, as a Green Forest hero, was not very good at political maneuvering after all. He never thought that Li Yuan's existence was actually a threat to Lu Feng. After all, he was the emperor of the Tang dynasty, and he single-handedly established the Tang Empire. Naturally, the civil servants and generals of the Tang dynasty still had great trust and affection for him. And this is exactly what Lu Feng, or any king, cannot tolerate. After all, they are just surrendering troops, and they don't have much identification with the Dragon Kingdom. If Li Yuan had been around, maybe one day he would raise his arms and get everyone's response, and he would rebel again. And the most important thing is that although it was Li Jiancheng who killed Li Shixiao, the real masterminds behind it were Lu Feng and Wei Zheng. Especially Wei Zheng, who had been lurking around Li Jianbian for many days and obtained his letter. Even if he kept a low profile, someone would always recognize him. When the time comes and it is revealed that Li Jianquan's killing was Wei Zheng's idea, then Li Yuan would how to think. The tragic death of his 2 sons was indeed designed by Lu Feng, so he would definitely take the risk of defeat and raise an army to rebel. Therefore, no matter from which perspective, Lu Feng has reason to get rid of Li Yuan, but it cannot be now, but he needs to be killed secretly in the near future. It's a pity that Shan Xiangxin doesn't understand this. He only wants to kill Li Yuan to avenge his eldest brother, so when he saw Li Yuan, he couldn't help it. At this time, Li Yuanba was also furious at Shan Xiangxin and said, "You are a thief, you dare to kill my father in front of this general of the hammer, don't you want to live? See if I don't hit you to death with a hammer." After saying that, Li Yuanba grabbed the sledgehammer and hit Shan Xiangxin. However, before Li Yuanba's sledgehammer fell, Li Yuan shouted stop. This time, because Li Yuan shouted in time, Li Yuanba finally stopped, and Li Yuan looked at Shan Xiangxin and asked, "I don't know if what's the problem with you?" Shan Xiangxin stared at Li Yuan and said viciously, "Li Yuan, do you still remember that Shan Xiongzhong, who was shot through the throat by an arrow by you, was my eldest brother?" Li Yuan listened. Shan Xiangxin's words suddenly made him a little confused. How could he know which Shan Xiongzhong he had killed? However, thinking about it carefully, it seemed that he had accidentally killed someone more than 10 years ago. Could that person be Shan Xiangxin's brother? Fila reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. 3 Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 611. Although Li Yuan did not remember the eldest brother Shan Xiongzhong mentioned by Shan Xiangxin, he had heard of Shan Xiangxin's reputation as Yuntian Xiaoguan Yu and knew that he would not use this excuse to deceive yourself. Moreover, since he came with Lu Feng and seemed to be very familiar with Guojia and others, he must have defected to the Dragon Kingdom. However, at this time, he couldn't calm down and assassinated him. He must be really right. He has a strong murderous intention. Thinking of this, Li Yuan glanced at Shan Xiangxin again. Then, he borrowed a long sword from a soldier, and slowly walked up to Shan Xiangxin and said to him, I am very sorry for the death of your elder brother. Sorry. It was because Yang Guang was chasing our family, and General Qin Kaiyan passed by at that time and rescued our family. As soon as he left, your elder brother rushed over. In fact, he also heard that Yang Guang wanted to kill me. He came to save us specially, but it was a pity that Qin Kaiyan had just left at that time, and our whole family had just escaped from death. We were still in shock, so I shot an arrow in a hurry, but I didn't want to kill Shan Yingxiang. I, Li Yuan, can be said to have been the best in my life. I have a clear conscience, and the only thing that makes me feel guilty is mistaking Shan Yingxiang for the killer sent by Yang Guang. This is my fault, and I naturally have to apologize to you. Of course, I also know, you and your eldest brother have a deep relationship. The grudge between you and me cannot be smoothed over by my apology, and no matter what, your eldest brother did die at my hands. Naturally. I will not shirk this matter. I will give you a chance for revenge. You and I will have a fair showdown. Life or death depends on whether we can avenge your brother after. Li Yuan finished speaking, he turned to look at Li Ziyuning and Li Yuanba. Behind him were all the soldiers of the Tang dynasty, and then he said slowly, today I will fight Shan Xiangxin, a fair duel of our own free will. The so-called fair duel not only determines victory or defeat, but also determines life and death, but no matter whether I live or die in the end, it is all my voluntary choice and has nothing to do with other people. Even if I die, we are not allowed to embarrass Shan Xiangxin and avenge me. But the father a euro. Li Ziyuning was shocked when he heard Li Yuan's decision. Whether it was Li Yuan or Shan Xiangxin, Li Ziyuning knew the strength of both of them very well. Especially his father, Li Yuan. Although he also started his career as a martial artist, whether he was the Duke of Tang during the Sui dynasty or the king of the Tang dynasty who later galloped around, it was Li Yuan who took the lead and led the army to fight on the front line. But these were only battles commanded by Li Yuan, rather than him personally going into battle to kill the enemy. In fact, Li Yuan's martial arts skills were not compared to those of these famous generals and heroes in the world. Even Li Ziyuning himself could face Li Yuan in a duel without falling behind. Therefore, if it was compared to commanding battles or military talents, Li Ziyuning would not worry about Li Yuan at all. But if it was a duel, then Li Ziyuning did not think Li Yuan could win. After all, his opponent Shan Xiangxin was one of the former Weigong Five Tigers. Although Li Ziyuning has never seen what his strength is, being called Little Guan Yu is not just a matter of loyalty. At least in terms of force, he cannot disgrace the martial Saint Guan Yu. Prestige. To read the underlined version of the novel, please download the Philu Novel app. A. Three Kingdoms, I Have a Job Transfer Palace. Author, Strong Wine Burns the Heart. Chapter 612. Besides, Shan Xiangxin Euro trademark S golden top jujube tree weighs 120 kilograms. He doesn't a Euro trademark T have the strength to swing it like the wind, even if he wants to take it. It's not easy to get up. The gap between the two is so obvious, but Li Yuan insists on going his own way and wants to fight Shan Xiangxin in a duel. What is the difference between this and committing suicide? Now that Li Jiancheng is dead and Li Yuan has finally escaped his control and regained his freedom, how can Li Ziyuning watch his father die like this? Even if Shan Xiangxin said that Li Yuan killed his eldest brother, it was just a misunderstanding after all, and since both Shan Xiangxin and Li Yuan have surrendered to the Long Kingdom, Li Ziyuning is confident in persuading Lu Feng to settle the conflict between the two. Even though she is not sure yet whether she can convince Lu Feng, she believes that if she becomes Lu Feng's concubine before long, then Lu Feng will definitely consider her suggestion seriously. After all, Li Yuan would already be Lu Feng's father-in-law, so there was no reason for Lu Feng to let his father-in-law die. It is precisely because Li Ziyuning has a solution to the hatred of Shan Xiangxin in her heart that she does not want to see her father comfort Shan Xiangxin in this way. But Li Yuan directly interrupted Li Ziyuning. Ziyuning, don't say anything. I have already decided to be a father. After all, I can't bear with the Shan Xiangxin brothers for this matter. Besides, it's like your eldest brother killed your second brother, you must try your best to kill your eldest brother to avenge your second brother. Now Shan Xiangxin and I don't have the same affection as you and Jian Cheng. What's wrong with him wanting to kill me to avenge his eldest brother? Li Ziyuning was stunned. He listened dumbly to Li Yuan's words, but didn't know what to say. After all, what Li Yuan said did make sense. He had already done that, so what position and reason did he have to ask for help? Later, when Li Yuan saw that Li Ziyuning was no longer himself, an inner smile finally appeared on his face. This was the first time he had laughed since he knew that Li Shimin had been killed by Li Jiancheng, and it might be the last time. He smiled and said to Li Ziyuning, Ziyuning, there will be no Tang dynasty in this world from now on. Just follow the Dragon Emperor. He will definitely become the greatest emperor in history. After Li Yuan finished speaking, he walked away without looking back. Shan Xiangxin in the distance. At this time, Li Ziyuning had already burst into tears. Although the duel between Li Yuan and Shan Xiangxin had not yet begun, Li Ziyuning had already foreseen the final result. Especially what Li Yuan said to her just now, that the kind words of advice, no matter how they were heard, were like parting words, making Li Ziyuning's chest feel like a huge stone was pressing on it, and he was breathing heavily. But Li Yuan didn't care about Li Ziyuning's thoughts anymore. He came to Shan Xiangxin with his long sword. Pointing forward, he said to him, Shan Daxia, come and show me your true strength. Hearing Li Yuan's words, the two Dragon City cavalrymen who were still holding Shan Xiangxin in custody turned to look at Lu Feng with questioning eyes, and Lu Feng waved his hands, indicating that they should let him go. Since both sides have intentions, a fair duel, then Lu Feng will naturally not say anything. After all, the hatred between the two cannot be resolved at all, not to mention that now using Shan Xiangxin's hand to get rid of Li Yuan will save a lot of trouble. After Shan Xiangxin regained his freedom, he picked up the weapon again and stared at Li Yuan. He had been waiting for many years, and now the opportunity for revenge finally came. Fei. Lu reminds you, 3 things about reading: collect, recommend, and share.